mine with pine beetle infestation.
Anthony, what is the most dangerous thing on the planet today?
Well, I look myself. Yeah. Well, if you ask people what's the most dangerous thing on Earth, what do you think most people would say? Probably nuclear weapons, right?
Yeah.
Or biological weapons, chemical weapons.
Yes, or some kind of venomous animal.
None of the above. The most dangerous thing on Earth is something which actually has never been looked upon as a threat. It is odorless, it is formless, it is shapeless, it doesn't have a body, is made up of metals, doesn't fire out projectiles. It's just a gas, and it is called methane. Methane is CH4, that means carbon and 4 hydrogen atoms, and it is a greenhouse gas, and it is a very powerful greenhouse gas. It is much more powerful than carbon dioxide. Methane as a single substance is more dangerous than, in our opinion, all the biological, chemical, and nuclear weapons added together. Even if they're unleashed completely, they would not be able to match methane in its total destructive power and its global destructive power, because methane would not miss a single square inch on Earth. Nuclear weapons could spare some boonies, maybe forests. They may not nuke forests, they nuke cities, but methane is not going to spare any square millimeter on Earth. And of course I'm talking about global warming. Methane has been another dangerous thing actually that has to do with methane is that it has been ignored by the general public. We are talking about carbon dioxide always, talking about when we talk about methane, at worst we're talking about methane which is emitted by the animal agriculture industry, particularly the meat industry, particularly those that has to do with cows, chickens and hogs. In animal excrement there's a lot of methane, and in fact the animal agriculture industry is coming up with more greenhouse gases in terms of carbon dioxide equivalent, meaning also methane, that it is also produces more greenhouse gases than the transportation system. Up to now, when we talk about greenhouse gases, we're talking about carbon dioxide, and the carbon dioxide is certainly a greenhouse gas, but methane is far more dangerous. And as I was mentioning, the animal industry is pumping up more greenhouse gases than the transportation industry by about 20% or 25%. So it is something that has been totally ignored and totally bypassed by governments and by even the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, IPCC, which is pretty about the bastion, or considered to be the bastion of truth in terms of global warming, and what they come up with in terms of reports and assessments, what governments base the policies on. So, methane currently hasn't been a huge factor, but it is becoming a huge factor very quickly. And I'm not even talking about the animal production industry, because it has been addressed, and no difference has been made in the policy of the governments. I mean, what we're talking about is to get rid of that methane. We have to stop the animal production industry, and that is basically to turn everybody into a vegetarian or maybe a vegan. I mean, how much time do we need for that? And so, by all means, the animal rights movement should force the animal production industry to cut back and gradually phased out, but it's going to take a long time. And other source of methane, which is even far more dangerous than the source, which is the animal industry, is the permafrost and the ocean deposits of methane clathrates in the ocean continental shelves. And there is enough methane in the permafrost alone to more than double the amount of carbon in the atmosphere if all released. And the permafrost has already begun to melt, and a lot of methane has already been released into the atmosphere. And actually some submarine methane clathrate deposits have also begun to degas. So, and that is a hugely dangerous situation that has been completely overlooked by governments and by most people. And only a few scientists talk about it, and they're not particularly heeded. So let's say today we have raised the global temperature by less than 1 degree Celsius, or maybe 1.2 degrees Fahrenheit, and even that has been sufficient to begin very noticeable and actually very significant methane release from the permafrost in Siberia, in northern Canada, in Alaska. I mean, it's highly visible. I mean, there was the permafrost is somewhat below ground, and above that is a layer of soil, and then people build houses on it. The forests grow on that layer of soil. But then, if the ice is melted underneath it, then all the houses become tilted, and the trees fall down. And there is even a term for it. I mean, if you drive around in Siberia, you will see that a lot of so-called drunken forests, and that is forests whose trees are all tilted, and it's all because of the permafrost melting underneath it. And that is with a less than 1 degree Celsius rise in global temperature. We are talking about 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 degrees rise within this century. If 1 degree is enough to begin to melt the permafrost, what would 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 degrees do? It will melt even more. And it will generate a methane feedback loop, which is not to be taken lightly at all. I mean, that's the most dangerous feedback loop of all the feedback loops. And there are dozens of feedback loops everywhere, and I'll name 2 or 3. The most dangerous is the methane feedback loop, because methane is a very powerful greenhouse gas. When it's first released into the atmosphere, it's about 75 times more powerful than carbon dioxide, even though it declines down to about 25 times the potency of carbon dioxide as a greenhouse gas after 20, 30 years, because methane has a shorter lifespan than carbon dioxide. And so more methane melted from more permafrost melted due to carbon dioxide driven global warming. More methane will join carbon dioxide in the atmosphere to warm the atmosphere. It will melt more permafrost, release more methane, warm up the atmosphere more, melt more permafrost, and maybe some more methane clathrate in the ocean. And it is not just a cycle, it is a spiral, and the spiral is spiraling towards runaway global heating, and I believe that has already begun. I have personally defined runaway global heating at the beginning of it at the point when the permafrost began to melt, and that has been quite a few years already. We have been ignoring it completely. It's been documented. I mean, there's tons of photos done on it. There's been a lot of papers written on it, but it has totally escaped public attention, governmental attention, deliberate governmental ignoring and neglecting. So it is a huge problem, and if we allow that to happen, to continue to happen, we are certainly going to get the Earth to warm up much more than any scientific prediction that has ever been made. Other than the pure scientific predictions, they will predict that this will happen, that there will be a methane feedback loop, etc. But the governments have paid no attention to. So, cut.